Welcome back. I'm Multimeteor. This is Duels of the Planeswalkers 2014 early build of Firewave. And yeah, like I said, we're taking a look at Firewave, a deck that is probably the deck I have the least experience with, basically because it was entirely unlocked from me owning Duels of the Planeswalkers 2013. So they gave me a deck key, which was alright and kind of disappointing. I guess it was a nice way of saving a bit of time instead of like the people who've been following me for a while know that I like to unlock every card manually. Anyways, as you see down here, at present point we have 36 cards unlocked, and that means that there's 30 cards unlocked from just playing and 6 cards unlocked from promo codes. So if you haven't updated your unlock cards yet and unlocked the final promotional cards that's been released yet, 4 to go, go check out my video on that. And I think I made it a couple of weeks ago, just to give you a point of reference. And there should be a link where you go to the Wizards of the Coast community forum, and you're able to unlock the final cards. But like I said in the previous video, for Mind Maze last week, I'm going to include the promo cards which I unlocked, and which I also feel are playable. Originally, I wasn't going to do that. I was going to do an early build version for every deck without any of the promo cards, but I just felt that the decks would lose their pertinence. The builds would lose their pertinence. Why not just use the cards that's available right now? So, all right, no more talking. Well, lots more talking, but not in that manner. All right. So, like I said, I haven't really played around with it a lot, but I have, messed around with it a little bit. But this is just an early build video, so it goes. I'm going on my instinct here. So yeah. First of all, 24 lands. You could perhaps go down to 23, and I might do that. Might change up some things during this video. Anyways, I'm running 2 Grim Lavamancer because it's a nice pinger. There's lots of cards in your graveyard which you aren't going to be using again, so might as well just throw them at your opponent's face. So there's 2 of those, and also it's definitely an easy target for your opponent, and that makes it so that he's going to be willing to wasting his removal on your 1-drops, because you're sitting there with a 2-point pinger, which can actually do a lot of damage to your opponent's board state. I'm running 3 Goblin Arsonists. Let's just get this the right way. Yeah, 3 Goblin Arsonists just as blockers and early pingers as well. Early drops, just like the Lavamancer. I'd actually rather have a Goblin Arsonist in my opening hand, because it's just great. It stalls the game a little bit for the opponent, and it makes it so that you can start, like you can stall a little bit and take care of some of the aggressive early drops on your opponent's side if he insists on swinging in. And furthermore, you can get to land drop 3, 4 and start doing the things that you want to do. All right, so I'm running both disintegrates just for the flexibility. And when I say flexibility here, if you only have one, you're going to be saving it for either throwing it at your opponent's face or disintegrating your opponent's regenerating creature or recursive graveyard recursive creatures. But if you run 2 of them, then you're likely to see another one, and disintegrate is just a great spell right there. So really no need to not run 2 of them, especially because this is a card that gets better if you're mana flooded. So yeah, there's that. Pillar of Flame is awesome as well. It's really, really great against Deadwalkers. It's great against the mirror if your opponent is running Phoenixi. And it's 2 to the face. It's a shock with added bonuses. running Flame Slash. If I had more Flame Slash, I would probably run 2 or 3 because it is really, really good against Hunter Strength. It's good against any deck that runs 4-drop creatures that get on the table early. So yeah, this I recall Weapons of Mass Gaming saying last year, I believe it was, or maybe the year before, at least last year, I believe they said this card, or I think JT said that this card kind of breaks the limit for like traditionally removal, like point removal was capped at around 3, unless you use some kind of like more expensive removal spell. But this deals 4 damage, not to the face, but to a creature, and that takes care of threats which used to be outside of that limit. Slith Firewalker is a card which I'm kind of debating whether or not I should run. But if your opponent doesn't have anything for you, if you're playing against a slower deck, then this guy can get very, very big, very, very fast. And it's just a little bit. It's again a little bit of flexibility. I'm not sure I would run a bunch of them, but I'll definitely run one of them for now. It doesn't really work with the greater plan, but if nothing else, it's just a chump blocker. If everything goes against or towards your plan, then this guy will get huge fast, and he'll become a threat which your opponent really has to do something about. Kiln Fiend is great. It's been great for a long time now, and the reason that it's really, really great is that if you run this deck like I do, with as close as possible to Born of Flame from Duels of the Planeswalkers 2013, and you run it really, really spell heavy, then this guy will take advantage of that. This deck is a little bit more reliant on creatures than Born of Flame used to be, but this there are ways to get around it. Reverberate. Actually, I had to take out a lot of stuff which I didn't feel quite cut the mustard. So Reverberate is that quote unquote second spell that you need to finish a creature or finish off your opponent when you don't when you can't draw that second burn spell. Reverberate will be that second burn spell for you, and it'll also be that second that answer. Not a counter to your opponent's spells, but it'll be an answer where your opponent, for example, drops some kind of spell that'll gain him creatures, or which will actually change the board positioning significantly, or he'll drop a removal spell right where it's going to hurt for you. You reverberate it and take care of that creature that is the threat on the other side. Perhaps a creature which you had a lot of trouble doing anything about, simply because of the fact that his creatures were too huge. So Reverberate is a nice flexible card in that regard. It is very contextual, but you only run one of them. You only have one of them as far as I can see. Here you see a bunch of cards which I'm not running. A lot of them shouldn't be a surprise to anyone. Final Fortune. I'm not sure about this card yet. I haven't really had a lot of experience playing it. But my gut says that, like a lot of the times when I played Born of Flames, you end up in a situation where you just need one more turn to finish off your opponent. And Final Fortune will give you that one more turn. Basically because you're in a situation where perhaps you have your opponent way down, but you need to do something about it right now, or else he'll start solidifying and stabilizing and coming back at you with stuff that you can't deal with. Basically, Final Fortune gives you an extra turn to not only do stuff but to untap your mana. So it gives you an extra turn of untapped mana to play around to play your spells, and that's very important. Plus, it draws you an extra card, seeing that you get an extra turn. After that, you lose, but I think I'm not sure if it's entirely worth it running both of them, but I can definitely see this working to this deck's advantage, especially because like mono red decks like this, which are burn heavy, often needs that extra turn of not only a card or of being able to play your spells or playing spells, but also of just untapping your lands and giving you more options. One Searing Spear isn't really a lot, but apparently they just wanted to give us one, so I'll take it. I'll take all the Searing Spears I can get. It's 3 damage to the face or to the to a creature. Definitely want to run that. Wild Guess is just awesome if you run Phoenixi or Phoenixes, and yeah, it draws you a couple of cards, so not bad. It's a nice card draw, which could, again, is the same with Final Fortune. Like you run into those situations where you just need one more turn to finish things off, and you also run into those situations where you've just emptied your hand because you wanted to do a lot of things or wanted to remove a lot of things, and Wild Guess will give you, Wild Guess will help you out. As long as you have one card in hand as that you could discard. Anyways, Chandra's Phoenix is a card that you just have to run. I think even like I can't even imagine how burn heavy your deck ought to be for a monocolored deck not to run this. Even if it's really burn heavy, like I don't think there's a single burn spell that that trades out Chandra's Phoenix just because it comes back, because it's feat. It trades, it blocks, evasion. It's 2 power, 2 toughness. It bounces back to your hand as soon as you give damage or deal damage to an opponent's face. There's so many good things. Like it's pure upside, and it's cheap as well. So 2 of those. Chandra's Spitfire is it's in here because it's a killing fiend that costs 1 more but gets evasion and has 1 more in the rump. It's just too good not to run. I'm not sure I would run all of them if I had like a full play set, but 1 definitely, maybe also 2, maybe even more. I don't know. Like 3 cost is really cheap. Flame Break is great. It takes care of it's really good against both zombies, but especially against Avacyn's Glory and against not so much against Mind Maze, but certainly against Sliverhive is what I'm saying. At least early game, and that's where you want to use it. It's also great if it's also great for comboing with the Goblin Arsonist to force the pings. So yeah, lots of good things about it. Flames of the Firebrand is not amazing, but it's great for it's good enough. You get again flexibility, and that's what you want, especially in a deck that's so narrow-minded. You want flexibility because there are so many different strategies out there, and in this year's format, it's not just aggro, and it's not just mill and control and so on. Like there are some attrition based, like the Demir deck. There's some like recursion stuff with the Deadwalkers and like tribal stuff and so on, which like there's different kinds of themes, and you want that flexibility, so you can deal damage to your opponent's face. You can take care of 1 or up to 3 creatures. Like there's some niceties about this, that's not the right word. There's something very nice about this card. It's not amazing. If it was an instant, it would be absolutely amazing. If not, the fact that it's a sorcery makes it just okay, but it definitely takes up a slot in your deck. Browbeat, it's card draw, or it's 5 to the face of your opponent. Early game, which I'm not sure you would want to be playing this early game unless you want to get a jump start and that you're able to do like a bunch of damage to your opponent like really quickly. I'm not sure you want to be playing this card otherwise, but if if you play this late game and your opponent is already way down, like around, let's say, 6, 7, 8, or even lower life total, you're just drawing 3 cards, which is really really good. Chandra's Outrage, well, it's also a staple. You have to have it. It's another one of those cards that takes care of 4 toughness creatures, and it deals damage to your to creatures to that creature's controller. I mean, as opposed to last year, this card will usually find a target. You could definitely have some situations in last year's in the last year's format where you would play against a mirror, or you would play against mill, and this card would basically be a dead card. But in this year's format, all of the decks rely on creatures to some effect, so it's definitely not a bad card. And the fact that you can force in 2 damage even if your opponent's creatures are too big is really, really good as well. So I'll run both of them. Not sure. I don't think there's. Just need to be sure. All right, run the Magma Phoenix because it's great. It's a great control card. If your opponent is very creature reliant, you can force a board wipe. It kills 6 toughness creatures as well, or just a single one, and then every other 3 toughness creature on the board, and you can bring it back from the graveyard. So it's just a great card. Not sure I would run a lot of them. I think you had the option of running 2 of them in Born of Flame. I only ran 1, but 1 is just enough. Yeah, it's a great card. Well, I guess you can make a case for running 2 of them. But yeah, Fire Servant is one of the more fragile things you can play with. It will almost always swallow up some removal spell, but if you get even 1 turn with him, especially if you play him late, then all of your burn spell would become that much more potent. And yeah, I think it's worth running a couple of them, especially because 1 gets killed. Then you have the option. You could perhaps, like, there's the possibility of drawing a second one. I'm running all Lava Axes basically because it's a definite kill once you draw it late game, and if not, it's an easy way of getting your opponent way down real fast. So I think that's important. It's a little. There's definitely situations where you're playing against something like Guardians of Light, and you really need to take care of their enchanted creature instead of taking care of, instead of burning your opponent's face, because he's just going to gain that life anyway. And this card is not going to be that useful, but not too many people play Guardians of Light. Which potentially could be the worst matchup for this deck. Not entirely sure yet. Yeah, so right now I'm running 3 of them. I might cut down to 2 of them, not entirely sure. Then I run Inferno Titan, and if I had the option, I would run a couple of more, because it's one of the most amazing cards in last year's format and this year's format. It's just good. It's just really, really strong, just like Primeval Titan. Primordial Titan. Primeval Titan, I guess, was or is one of the best cards for mono green. This is perhaps one of the very best cards for mono red or any red colored decks, just because it does so many things. It's a 6 cost, but it gives you a 6/6. It has Fire Breath, and at the same time it deals 3 damage to which you divide. Like it's a Flames of the Firebrand when it enters the battlefield and when you attack, and that's before dealing damage. It's before blockers and so on and so forth. So it's just gonna control the game once it hits the board. And even if you don't get to, like, it's one of those creatures where even if you don't, if it gets taken out immediately, it's going to have impacted the board a little bit just from dealing those 3 damage. And 2 things it's done. It's dealt 3 damage either to creatures, that means it's a removal, or to the face, that means it's burn. And it will have taken away a removal spell of your opponent's, and that's for one. That's one card of yours. Of course, 6 mana, but it's one card of yours. At this point, where you have 6 lands down, it's not going to be a huge difference that it's a 6 drop, because it just does too much, it just does a lot of things. So yeah, that I think there's a lot of upsides to this card. You would definitely run it. Here's another card that I run, which I'm not so sure about. It's a 7-cost 5/5 haste creature. Whenever another creature you control dies, it deals damage equal to its power to target player. And I'm not running a lot of creatures in here, but the creatures that I do run, like Inferno Titan, if I get to drop this guy first and he doesn't die, and I get to drop Inferno Titan, then or any of these other creatures, Fire Servant, Magma Phoenix, like it's just gonna, like, even like a Chandra's Phoenix, like it's just gonna hurt every time your opponent takes out your creatures. Of course, most of the time they'll start by taking out this guy first, but yeah. Um, in combat situations, I think the okay. Let me say it like this. The case for running this guy is for when you're playing against a deck which either isn't drawing its removal, have used its removal, or isn't running removal, or a lot of removal at least. Because when you have this down, of course you're going to do a lot of damage, even if your opponent has, um, like flyers. You still, like, every time you drop a creature, you're not afraid of swinging in with them, because you know they can do a lot of damage when they exit the battlefield, and that's the important part. That is the important part. I guess it doesn't work with exile, but for everything else, like, you're just gonna swing in. At some point, your opponent will have to block, and yeah, they just take the damage anyway. So it kind of, it's an extension of the philosophy of this deck, that almost everything in this deck should just hurt your opponent. It should be able to burn his face, or do some damage, at least to his board state. So 17 creatures is not it's not that little of an amount of creatures, but it's not the most creature heavy deck still. And your creatures are there because they do something, like, for the most case, they do something different than just smack face. Or they smack face with synergies or with effects or something like that. But a lot of them are there for controlling, or for their recursion or something like that. So, or for their amplification of spells or something like that. So that's basically how I built the deck. Um, let's quickly take a look at the cards that I'm not running. You could definitely run Crimson Mage if you want to run it for the hasties, but I don't think this guy does enough for me. Like, the card art is the best part of this guy, and Izzy is an awesome artist. But aside from that, I don't think he does enough for you to warrant running him. Stormblood Berserker is pretty cool, I guess. But you can't drop him early game unless you have some way of getting in there. And I don't know, like, I don't know. I think it's too many eggs in a basket with this guy. Yeah, don't really want to run him. This guy again, Torch Fiend, I would only run him if it said destroy target enchantment, because then you had something to mess with. Yeah, you had an answer for your opponent's, or for Avatan's Glory, and for, I guess, Hunter's Strength, and for Guardians of Light. Aside from that, I don't really think so. I don't think it's worth it. Pilgrim's Eye, I don't see it. It's too slow. I mean, sure, you like tempo in terms of lands, but you're wasting your time dropping 1/1 flying artifact creatures. So I don't see that. I don't see running that at all. Regathan Firecat. Yeah, maybe if I was running it creature heavy, and maybe if it said haste, and maybe if it said lightning bolt and 4 cost and haste and 4/1. This one is just going to be a chump blocker or a trading blocker. Staff of the Flame Magus. I've actually lost a few games to the staffs, but I'm never gonna run it anyways because the few matches that I lose is me being land screwed or land flooded, and them having too many turns where they gain life from the staffs. Um, when my decks run smoothly, I never want to be running a Staff of the Flame Magus because it doesn't help me out in the slightest. So no. Fire Shrieker, I think it goes a little bit against the philosophy of this deck. I could definitely see perhaps running one, and if you do get it down, perhaps putting it on Chantress Spitfire or Chantress Phoenix or even a Killing Fiend, even though it doesn't have evasion. Slith Firewalker, like any flying creature basically, but I don't know. I'd rather have more burn, to be honest. Sulfuric Vortex is a card that you could run. I do think it's a little slow, but it does get you to does get you where you want to go. But it does also work against you if your deck isn't working as it's supposed to. Um, yeah, I would be careful about running too many of these or running it at all. Um, but I mean, I could definitely see if what you're all about is trying to wear your opponent down and then throw all your burn at his face. But it is one turn where you're dropping this rather than dropping a creature or burning a creature or burning a face or something. And after that, both of you take damage. So if your opponent keep dropping threats, then this guy is not going to help you because it's not a blocker, it's not a removal spell, it's just passive damage every turn. So yeah, not sure. This is a card that you could sort of run, especially if you're expecting to get land flooded later on, and just fill your hand with lands, and you basically have a lot of burn. Um, I'm not too sure because I don't like if I was expecting my games to go long, I would definitely run this. But I'm not expecting them to go long. I'm expecting I try to optimize my deck for speed, even though I'm not running the haste guy. I run the burn and I run like low cost creatures and so on, and I want to get in there early. Um, and whenever I get to land drop 5, 6, 7, I don't want to be throwing it at my opponent's creatures or my opponent's face. I want to be using them to cast the spells that I need to cast, and perhaps not just one spell, but several spells in a turn. So I think it's a dangerous game that you're playing, and it sets you up for a mind state that pulls you out of like the regular playing land game. Like it makes it so that you want to use your land in a way that is very, very short-sighted, is what I'm trying to say. Firewing Phoenix is sort of good. It's one of the creatures where like I'm still considering putting him in, taking out a land, because I'm basically running 23 lands with all my decks, and I'm still getting land flooded way too much. Some I could put him in is what I'm trying to say. Cyclops Gladiator is pretty cool. But he's playing a different game that I want to. I want to play. I want to have more evasion creatures or creatures that do a lot of different things. This is a card that's where its theme is way too random or way too different than the rest of the cards in this deck. So I'm not sure. I wouldn't fault anybody for running him, but I think it's a little different from what I want to do with this deck. Furnace of Wrath. Never really liked running it. Don't think I'm going to. So yeah, I hate when I lose to this card, but because it will happen if your opponent plays this card, it starts getting out of hand really quickly. But until then, I'll probably not. I'll probably not lose to this card as many times as I'll be happy that I'm not running it. I guess that's a weird equation, but yeah. Relentless Assault. Again, if I ran this deck more creature heavy, maybe I could see you running it. It's definitely not a bad card if you build your deck for it, but it's not that good in my deck, I think. Although, I guess having two combat phases with killing fiends that's already pumped and then get pumped some more isn't the worst thing in the world. I might run it. I might try to run it. Oh, get down there. Two fire elementals. Well, both of them can stay up here because they aren't very good, to be honest. Blood Pyre Elemental, a 4/1 for 5. That's already bad to begin with. Sacrifice Blood Pyre Elemental. Blood Pyre Elemental deals 4 damage to target creature. Activate this ability only anytime you can cast a sorcery. See, it's not very tricky. You can't do it on your opponent's turn, and you pay 5 for this guy to sack him to deal 4 damage to a creature, not even your opponent's face. Fuck that. Don't ever want to be running it. That's really, really bad. There's a reason it's a common card. Cone of Flame. I think it's a little expensive, but and you often don't have the targets for it. If you end up targeting creatures which aren't dying just to get in the 3 damage to certain creatures or to your opponent's face or something like that, like it's not the best. It's not. There are definitely times where it's all right, but for the rest of the time, it's not that good. Skarkan Firebird is pretty bad. It's a 3/3 for 6, and you have to do stuff for it to be a 6/6. If it is a 6/6 with flying and you're able to bring him back to your hand, then that's pretty decent. You're able to bring him back to your hand from your graveyard, of course. That's pretty decent, but the times that he's just a 3/3, he's just too expensive. I would much rather have a 5/5 or even a 4/4 flyer for 6 with a Phoenix ability than a 3/3 Bloodthirst 3. Hostility is really, really cool. Really, really great. If I ran more creatures, I would definitely run them, but I think it puts a step between me and doing damage, and I don't want my damage to be channeled into creatures. I want it to be directly to your opponent's face. Inferno, 7 cost, deals 6 damage to each creature and each player. I could see that. Like, it's way too expensive, not for what it does, but for gaining a slot in this deck. But it is, like it's 6 points of damage still. But it could also work against you. I don't want to be sitting with this card in my hand when we're playing the definitive final 2 turns, and I'm relying on a spell to be able to finish off my opponent, and he's going to smack me next turn. He's going to smack my face with a creature, and I'm below. I'm at 6 or below. Like, you don't want this card. You want this card, which is far better because it's only your opponent's side that is damaged. It's just 4 damage, but that's a lot of damage to push through to your opponent's side. So, yeah. I'm really considering taking out the 7-drop now, or an extra land. Yeah, maybe I'll take out. Yeah, fuck it. I'll do it. I'll put this in. Since I'm forced to run 17 creatures, I'll put Relentless Assault in there. Anyways, I think it was a little long, but I hope you guys enjoyed. I chose to do Firewave because somebody requested it, and somebody requested Hunter Strength for next week, so I guess I'll be doing Hunter Strength. Aside from that, I hope you guys enjoyed. I'll move into the random matches now and go online and try to see if I can get some wins with this build. Yeah, later.